Good morning, everyone. This is Karma Bauman. Thank you for joining us this morning. I certainly appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us on Friday mornings. I do these webinars for Photoshop the third and fourth Friday of each month, and we cover different aspects and different techniques of how to use Photoshop. If you happen to also be interested in WordPress, on the first and second Fridays of each month, I do. And this is just the way that I give back to the community. I started using Photoshop many years ago, and it kind of changed the trajectory of my life, and I like to give back to the community that helped me in my journey. So welcome to each of you, and thank you for joining us this morning. I am trying something a little bit different in this morning's webinar. I've used a different webinar software in the past several weeks, but this morning I decided to go the easy route, and I'm trying Google Hangouts, and we'll see how this works. Easy to set up, so I'm looking forward to using it. All right, just a couple housekeeping techniques. You'll see on your screen below the video, there's this little form there. If you have questions or comments as we go through the webinar, don't hesitate to fill that out and send it across. I will see it pop up on my screen, and I will certainly address it in the webinar, either at the moment, shortly thereafter, or at the end of the webinar. And I love hearing from the audience, so don't hesitate to ask a question or to give a comment. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll get started here really quickly with the actual content for this morning's webinar. Okay, eventually on your screen, you'll see my first slide show up, which is the Photoshop webinars. Just a background about myself. I'm Karma Bauman. My company is Onward Studios. I originally started Onward Studios doing websites, and it has gone through several versions. I still do websites, but I have found that I love training. And so probably 50 to 60% of my time is spent on training clients, doing workshops here local in the Denver area, and then doing some online training as I'm doing this morning. And most of my training is focused on Photoshop, WordPress, and some of the other Adobe Creative Suite programs. In today's webinar, we're going to cover the Photoshop tools. Now, I really debated whether or not I should cover all of the tools or break it out across several weeks. I'm thinking I might get through all the tools this morning. If not, we'll continue on next time around. But my goal this morning is not to go in depth with each tool, but just to give you a feel for each tool. And I will be doing most of the tools. There are just a couple exceptions. I won't be focusing so much on the few tools, I think maybe 3 or 4 tools used for 3D aspects. And there's just a couple web design tools and that I'll mention and probably skip over those. But this morning it's more about giving you an overview. So I do a quick demonstration, kind of explain when you might use these tools. I don't expect you to grasp it all in this very short hour when it's jam-packed with so much information. I will be recording this video for this webinar, so you'll have access to it after the fact. But we'll spend more time with each tool as we continue with these Friday morning webinars. And then at the end of the webinar, I will also list some more resources, and I will also, some of those are some websites to use. I will also include those links in the email that goes out with the recording link. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start just going through each tool and giving you a demonstration. And notice there's a try refreshing your screen. If you're getting a room ended, make sure you're on try doing a refresh and see if that will fix it for those that aren't seeing my screen. Oh, sorry about that. We had visiting dogs. Also make sure that you're at the proper link that says, I'm going to respond to this one really quick. Okay, I'm going to jump to my Photoshop screen. Actually, before I do that, let me jump back to this. I want to kind of just go through each set of tools to briefly define them, and then we'll go back into demonstrating each one. Last week, if you were with us, we went over the desktop, Photoshop desktop, and in there we kind of defined each of the areas as you see on this slide. Now this week we're going to focus on one of those areas or one of those panels, and that's specifically the toolbar. The tools are actually kind of organized, sort of organized into sections, if you will. I'm going to kind of go through those three, actually there's probably about 5 different sections of tools, and then we'll go into each individual tool. The very top, the very first few items are the selection tools, and those are probably the tools I use the most. There are a couple other ones down below that I use quite a bit as well, but selection tools, and that's kind of the beauty of Photoshop, is to be able to select something from one photo, put it into another, remove something from a photo. So you're doing selections to do those types of activities. So I'll do some quick demonstrations on the selection tools. There's a crop and slice tool. Slice tool is used more for the web design aspect, but we'll demo the crop tool. If you were with us several weeks ago, I went in depth on how to use the crop tool. And then there's a set of retouching tools used to do color correction, used to take care of blemishes, all kinds of different functionalities with the use of these tools. And then we have drawing and type tools, so adding items to our images or our designs, whether it's shapes, text, etc. And then we have a set of what I call document management tools. These are tools used to navigate within your canvas or your image, to move around if you're really zoomed in, to move that image around, as well as to zoom in and zoom out of the image. So those are the different categories of tools, if you will. There is one more there, the color selection tools. That's where we set our foreground and background colors as well. Okay, let's go to a demonstration of these tools in Photoshop. I have several images open inside Photoshop, and I'll be working with these images as I demonstrate some of these tools. We're just going to go from top to bottom on the toolbar. I'm going to start with the move tool at the very top, and this is probably one of the most used tools, and it's used just for that, to move things around in your image. Now, to do this, you have to have something on your image to move around. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to quickly add some text to my image. That's colorful. With my move tool, I can simply click on that and move it around. A couple of things to be aware of the move tool is, by default, it's going to move whichever layer you have selected in your layers panel. So notice my text layer is selected, so when I click and drag, it's going to move that. If I don't have something selected in my layers panel and try to move, I'm going to get this message saying there's nothing there. Now, it looks like there's something there, but if we observe our layers panel, I need to have a layer selected. There is an option on the move tool to avoid that, and that is this option right here. which is to auto select a layer. So if you click on something, it will automatically select that layer. I have to click on the content of that layer to move it. So that might be a handy tool to have. I know when you're starting out with Photoshop, it's sometimes easier to turn that on. So you can just click where you want to grab something and move it somewhere else. I can delete my text. That's the move tool. Now you may be aware we have all these tools that show up on our toolbar, but most of these tools have what we call hidden tools underneath them. So the hidden tool under the move tool is the Artboard tool. To see these tools, you simply click and hold on that tool, and that little pop-out will show the tools that are hidden under the main tool. Anytime you see a little triangle on the bottom right of the tool, there's hidden tools, and I think all the tools have that, except for maybe some down here at the bottom. The Artboard tool came out in Photoshop several versions ago. It's been in Adobe Illustrator for a long time. The Artboard tool lets you create multiple design pieces within the same document. So before you had to create, say I was creating a flyer for an event, a poster for an event, and maybe a banner for an event. They're all the same event, but I would have to have 3 different Photoshop files to create those 3 different pieces. Now with the Artboard tool, I don't have to do that. I can create those 3 pieces because they're related to one event. I can create all of those in one Photoshop document. To do that, I simply click on the Artboard tool, and then in the other area, I can create, just click and draw, and I can set the parameters or the size of the artboard up here in my options bar. And we learned last week that the options bar changes depending on which tool you have selected. So the Artboard tool lets me create multiple design pieces or multiple canvases, if you will, within the same document. And Control Z that back out to go back to where we were. Let's go down to the next tool, which is the Marquee tool. The Marquee tool is used to make selections in a document or in an image. Let's bring up this little image of my niece's daughter. And let's say I want to select little Miss Candace out of this picture. I can use my Marquee tool to do that. Now, if I click and hold, I notice I have different kinds of Marquee tools. I have the rectangle and elliptical Marquee tool. So if I do some kind of rectangle or some kind of oval or circle, I'll choose those accordingly. And I'll talk about the other 2 tools, Marquee tools, in just a sec. Actually, let me mention them here because I'll probably forget to come back to these. The single row Marquee and single column Marquee tool, it picks up 1 pixel, either across or down, depending whether you use a row or a column. And I've seen this used more in the web design world to pick up a background color or image or pattern, etc. So those are more web design tools. Let me just show you quickly how to use the Marquee tool. And I'm using the elliptical one. So to grab little Miss Candace out of here, I simply click and drag to create my selection. And it places this moving line around my selection. Then I can do whatever I want. If I hit delete, it will delete what I've selected, or I could copy that and paste it into a new document. File, new, Control V to paste. Okay, so the Marquee tools are used to make selections. I see a question there about making circles with Marquee tools. Yes, let me cover that really quick, and I'll spend more time especially with the Marquee tools in some future webinar, but just to answer your question really quickly. I went back to my original image. I'm going to do a Control D or Command D to get rid of the moving line there. If I want to make a circle, I hold down Shift and click and drag the proportions to keep it as a circle. And that would be true if I had the rectangle Marquee tool. I would hold down Shift to keep it as a square. Yeah, I see another comment coming in about using the elliptical tool. Sometimes it's hard to place it exactly where you want it. the way it draws is from top left to bottom right. And if you don't start at exactly the right place at the top left, you may miss your selection. With my mouse still pressed, I can hold down space bar and move that around to place it exactly where I want it. So the space bar can be your friend when you're working with the elliptical Marquee tool. Should also mention, I see some comments about the video quality. This is actually, since I'm using Google Hangouts, it's being streamed from YouTube. There should be a little gear icon at the bottom right of your video. If you click on that, you're going to get some options at one. You're going to get two options. One of them is video quality. If you click on the video quality option, you can choose like the 720 or the HD option, and the my screen will come through a lot more clearer. So again, that's a gear icon, the bottom right of this video, and choose the video quality and HD option. All right. Back to the elliptical Marquee tool. I just discussed how to move it around as you're making selection. There's one other question about how do I use the elliptical Marquee to draw from the center out. And there is a way to do that. By default, it goes from top left to bottom right, as we see demonstrated there. If I'm going to start from the circle out, I believe it's the Alt key, or from the center of the circle out, yeah. And now it draws from the center out. So I'm holding down the Alt key to do that. On the Mac side, it would be the Option key. Okay, so that's the elliptical tool, and it's used a lot. I use a lot inside Photoshop making various selections. The next tool down is the lasso tool. And I use these depending on the shape of the selection that I want to do. So I'll just demonstrate this really quick. And again, we'll spend more time with these in a future webinar where we just focus on the selection tools only. The lasso tool by default is just a freeform tool. Let's go back to a different image. Let's go to this Jeep. And I don't say I want to pull out this Jeep. And this is just a very rough. You can simply, so I clicked on my mouse, keeping it pressed, and then I'm just going around the Jeep to make the selection. Once I get close to where I start, I release my mouse, then it closes that selection for me. So that's just the lasso tool as is. Now there's variations of the lasso tool. We have a polygonal lasso tool. And I would use that if the shape warrants that I want to make a selection of. So for example, in this other image, say I want to pull out this river, and it's more of a polygon shape. I'm going to use the polygon lasso tool to do that. And the way that works is I just click on each corner, if you will. To make my selection. Then I can copy that, delete it, whatever I want to do with that selection. So that's the polygonal lasso tool. Then finally, the last variation of the lasso tool is a magnetic lasso tool. And of the lasso tools, I probably use this. Well, I was going to say I use that the most of the lasso tools. I don't know if that's true or not. I actually use a lot of the other tools anymore. The lasso tool, or the magnetic lasso tool, kind of helps you make the selection. So instead of just it being completely freeform, it's going to help you guess where the edges are of near your selection. So for example, if I want to say, take out this blue sky, I'm going to just kind of roughly drag along the top of this cliff, and it's making points. It's saying, oh, you want to pull out the blue sky. It notices the color variances are greater at the edges, so it determines you want to pull it out here. And I'm being very rough with this as I do this. And we'll come back along the tree. It's not going to be exact here. When I get back to the first location, the trick about using the magnetic lasso tool is closing your selection. So I'm going to place my cursor right over my first point, and I see this little circle show up next to my cursor icon. Release there, and there's my selection. So it helps you make the selections. You don't have to be quite as as refined with your mouse movements. All right, so that covers the variations of the lasso tool. Let's go down to the next tool. And these are probably two of my favorite tools, the quick selection tool and the magic wand tool. I used to use the magic wand tool a lot. And the quick selection tool came out quite a while ago now, and that has become my favorite tool. It's great for selecting areas of shades of a color, if you will. So for example, if I want to pull out this sky, I simply click and drag on my sky and release. Notice that how quickly it made that selection. Let me show you that again. To get rid of these moving lines, I do a Control D or Command D. It removes that selection. Again, I just simply click and drag. So what the quick selection tool is doing, saying, oh, you have blue under where you're clicking, so you must want to select all the contiguous blue areas of this image, and it quickly pulls it out. So that's the quick selection tool. The other kind of similar tool is the magic wand tool. Instead of clicking and dragging like you do with the quick selection tool, with the magic wand tool, you click and it determines, oh, you clicked on the blue, so you must want these shades of blue. Now there's a setting with the magic wand tool where you can increase the tolerance so it gets more shades. Or if I want to hold down Shift and click where it has not selected the blues, click again, it will continue to add to that selection. Okay, so that's the magic wand tool. Magic wand tool you do by clicking. The quick selection tool you do by clicking and dragging, or kind of like using a paintbrush. Yeah, comment about they love the quick selection tool. And I do too. It's a great handy tool to use and easy to use. Below those two tools, we have the crop tool. And that's used to do just that. If you click on that, it gives you this bounding box. You simply drag in your handles to where you want to make your crop, and then hit enter or hit this little check mark at the very top. I'm going to escape out of that. And a few weeks ago, I did a deeper tutorial on the crop tool. Cancel the crop tool. There we go. And then under the crop tool, we have some other tools. The perspective crop tool, it's also used to do cropping, but it's used more to retain perspective if you're cropping a photo of buildings, is where I've seen that used most often. And then those last two tools, the slice tool, those are used more for web design to kind of chop up your images so your design loads faster on your website. Below the crop tool, we have the eyedropper tool. And this is probably the most interesting set of tools, the eyedropper tool, and those inside the eyedropper tool, or those hidden under the eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool is used to select color within your image. At least that's how I use it most often. So for example, if I wanted to add some text, the color of these trees on this cliff, I grab my eyedropper tool and simply click, and it changed. It picked up that color. Notice in my little color boxes here towards the bottom of my toolbar, the foreground color became that color that I clicked on. If I would do the sky blue, click there, and my foreground color becomes that. So if I was to add text now or to add a shape with a fill, by default, it would pull in this, it would fill up with this foreground color, which right now is set to the sky blue. So the eyedropper tool is used most often to grab a color within your document. Let's look at these tools underneath the eyedropper tool. And my guess is some of these you may not even knew they were there. And so often we don't use what we don't know about. And some of these you also use in very specific scenarios. The first one is the 3D material eyedropper tool. I'm not going to cover 3D stuff in this webinar. Actually, I haven't used the 3D side of things in Photoshop. Maybe someday I'll explore that and do a training on that. Then we have the color sampler tool. This actually can pull out several different colors in your image. And this might be used if you want to sample several different colors and maybe set up a like a color bar for this image and then use those colors. You can pull out several sample colors to do that. I've also seen it used to do color correction. Sometime I'll do a webinar on color correction and demonstrate how they use the color sampler to do that. But just real quick here, with the color sample tool selected, if I click on somewhere in my image, it places a little dot there with a number next to it. And then in my info panel pops up and it's going to show me information about that color right there. If I click somewhere else, it's going to add another dot and then show me information about that color. So notice we have number 1, number 2 showing up in our info panel. Do one more. And there's information about number 3. So it's given me the, in this case, the RGB values. You can change those to other, to CMYK, etc. if you wanted to. So that's used to get color information out of your image or document. And clear those out. Continuing down the tools underneath the eyedropper tool, we have the ruler tool. And that's used to simply to do actually 2 things. One, to get measurements. So if I want to see, I don't know, the distance I have between, say, this gap between the trees, I can simply click on that and draw it, and then look at my info panel, and it will kind of show me the distance. There's 845 pixels in there. If I want to do something else, I simply click and drag, and you get the information. I've also seen the ruler tool used to straighten an image. Now, the crop tool kind of has all that built inside of it, so it's not necessary to use the ruler tool as much. But there are a couple other techniques you can use with the ruler tool besides just measuring. All right, continuing on with the tools underneath. The eyedropper tool, we have the note tool, and that is simply to add notes. And yeah, it's very true. I didn't even know this was here till I was using Photoshop for quite a while. And this will add notes. And so you click where you want to add a note. And this is great if you're working with design teams and you add a note saying, can we add text here, or whatever you want your note to say. You want to add multiple notes, you can do that. And then you simply add your note, your information for that note over here on the side there. Once you click off that tool, the notes still remain there. And then actually see the note, you just click on that note to go, but whoops, to get back to that. I don't want to do that. To clear the notes, again, the options bar has the parameters for the selected tool. Clear all, and it will get rid of those notes. And then finally, under the last one underneath the eyedropper tool is the count tool. And to be honest, I probably haven't used this more than 3 to 4 times, but it simply is that a count tool. Say if you have an image of bricks and for some reason you wanted to count all your bricks, instead of doing it visually, you simply click on each of those bricks and it will tally them for you. You can have groups of counts, so that defaults to count group 1. If I want to count something else on my screen, I could say I want to do a new group. And we'll call this, I don't know, trees. I'm going to change the color of this so I know it's a different group to something else. Then I can count my trees. You can hardly see that, but it's showing up there. So that's kind of a physical way to count something in your document or on your image. I'm going to clear those out of there. Then we get to some of our retouching tools, the spot healing brush, the patch tool, etc. We're going to start with the spot healing brush, excuse me. The spot, the spot healing brush is used to create blemishes. So whether it's working on people or something in your image that you want to remove, is to clear up spots. So the key there is it's spots on your image, it's not large areas. So for example, let's say on this Jeep, it has a couple of scratch marks here on the door. If we want to get rid of those, I'm going to grab my spot healing brush. I'm going to make the brush large or small enough to just capture that one spot. The keyboard shortcut for making your brushes larger and smaller are the bracket keys. The right bracket makes it larger, left bracket makes it smaller. I just click on that. It removes those, and what it's doing is actually picking up the colors around it and then removing that blemish. So very, very handy tool. That's the spot healing brush. The next one is the healing brush tool, and that's if you have larger areas. So it's not just a spot, but it's a larger area. And to show this to you, I'm hoping you can see this across the video waves. I know, maybe zoom in so you can maybe see it a little bit better. I'm doing a Control plus or Command plus to zoom in here. Let's see if we can get rid of, there's some reflection happening here. I'm not sure how good this will do, but I have the the healing brush. And I'm going to simply, the first thing I'm going to do is select a good area. So I'm just hold down my Alt key and select a good area. So I'm going to select that right there. I'm going to go over to the area that I want to change and then click and drag and start painting. And it's repainting. There are several things happening here. The big circle is my brush where I'm painting, but you'll see right to the left of the circle, and hopefully you can see this in the video, there's little crosshairs. What's under the crosshairs is what's being painted with my brush. I'm going to make it take another, I call it a picture, and go over here to get rid of some of this reflection. Okay. So the healing brush is used to cover large areas, and it takes a little while to kind of get used to that, using that. That's a little bit better. So that's the healing brush tool. Then underneath the healing brush tool, we have the patch tool. And this is used if you want to correct an area of your image. Again, I try not to go too large, but let's say if I want to try and get rid of this reflection here on the top of this Jeep, and this may not be the best tool to use to do this. So I'm going to grab that. So I'm grabbing what I want to change first. Then I'm going to click inside of that and drag it to what I want to change it to, say something in here, like so. I do Control D, get rid of my moving line. It replaced it with that. And that's a little bit obvious. I would probably do some more techniques to tidy that up a bit, but that's an example of the patch tool. The content aware tool is an amazing tool. I'm going to go to a picture over here of some bushes. I'm going to use the content aware tool to actually move this bush somewhere else. I'm going to first make a selection. Actually, I'll just use my lasso tool. Doesn't need to be perfect. I'm going to select this bush. And it's best if you can make a selection of something where there's area around it that's similar. I'm going to grab my content aware tool and then just move this bush over to, say, here somewhere. I say, yeah, I like it there. So I'm going to enter to accept that. And then it goes through its processing, and it's becoming aware of what's around this and places the bush in the new location and then patches where we moved it from based on what it saw around that. So amazing, actually. That used to take hours and hours to do. There's a bit of, it grabbed some of the cement here, I noticed, so I would actually do a couple more content aware tool moves to correct that. Let's see anything else under here. Oh yes, the red eye tool. I don't have an image open to do this. The red eye tool is very easy to use. Open image, it has the red eyes. Grab your red eye tool and just click on the red eye and it will fix it. Very, very cool. All right, now we're down to our brush tools. And these are the drawing and painting tools that you use to add things to your document. And I'm just going to do some quick demos of this. The brush tool is going to use your foreground color. Simply add brush strokes to your design. Of course, you can choose different types of brushes to do this. The pencil tool is a more refined. It's much smaller. Probably can't even see that. Let me see if I can make that bigger. Here's an example of pencil tool. And again, these all have settings that you can refine of how these strokes look. The color replacement tool. Let's go back to this red Jeep to demonstrate the color replacement tool. I'm going to change this blue to, say, a darker blue. Yeah. So what's happening here with the color replacement tool? I first set my foreground color to what I want to change it to. And then I'm going to go along here and change this door to a blue door. What I'm paying attention to is my cursor is a circle with a little crosshair in the center. So as I go along here, it's paying attention to the color right under that crosshair. It's saying, oh, it's red. So you want to change everything in the circle to your foreground color, like so. This is great. So watch what happens when I get up into this area. So I've made my brush bigger. I'm only clicking, I'm keeping that crosshairs only on the red, and it's changing only the red shades inside my circle. So it's not painting the glass area, it's not painting the darker areas around there, it's only capturing the blue areas or the red areas that are within my circle that match or they're similar to the red underneath my crosshairs. Mixer brush tool is, you can use that to mix colors, to mix, make your own colors, etc. I'm not going to demonstrate that in this webinar. And then we get down into the stamp tools. Clone stamp tool and pattern stamp tool. And again, this is used to replace parts of your image. So let's say for the clone stamp tool, let's go back to picture little Candace. I want to draw Candace out a couple of times in this image. Get it larger. Cool. I'm first going to take a picture. Notice it's red right now. It's because it's retaining what I pulled in from the red Jeep. This is similar to another tool that we used, the which tool was back earlier. I'm going to take a picture starting here. So I hold down Alt and click, and now it shows me that becomes my paintbrush, is what was underneath my cursor when I did Alt click, and just start clicking over here, and notice my crosshair is over her original face. What's underneath her crosshair is being painted to the left. Okay, so that's the clone stamp tool. Underneath the clone stamp tool will be a pattern stamp tool, and that's to create patterns. When I select that, up in the control bar or the options bar, you can select the patterns, and you can simply paint that onto your image. So those are the stamp tools. Then we go to the history brush and the art history brush. The history brush is great for bringing back elements. So for example, I'm going to go back to this picture of a river, and I'm going to change this into a black and white image. And there's different ways to change it to a black and white image. This is just one technique. I'm going to open up my history panel. And I'm going to assign my history brush to when I opened it. So the history brush is picking up the original version of this picture. And then I'm going to, as I use the history brush, I'm going to paint back what it looked like when I first opened it, because that's what I selected in my history panel. So let's say I want to bring back the trees on these cliff. So bring back this cliff, and I'm doing this really roughly to show this. And let's say I want to bring back the water areas. So this is a great technique to use. If you want to turn part of your picture to black and white and then bring back some of the color. There's other ways of doing this too. Okay, so that's a quick demonstration of the history brush to bring back a previous version of the document. The art history brush is kind of, I don't know if I've actually ever used this. I guess you're going to do something very impressionistic. You could use the art history brush. Kind of works the same way. Still on that. But it's going to bring back like very impressionistic type of image, like so it paints it more art-like, if you will, or impressionistic type of result. Let's go back to the original image. I'm looking at the time here, and it's almost, we're at 45 minutes. I don't want to extend these beyond 45 minutes. So I'm going to stop, or we'll continue this next time around, which will be the third week in August, and go through the last half of these tools. So we got down through the history brushes, and we come back next time around, we'll cover more of these. Yeah, there's a comment there about, and we didn't cover the pen tool, but yeah, the pen tool is a difficult one to learn. But we will be covering that the next time around. I won't go into depth on how to use a pen tool. That's probably a webinar in itself. So we'll spend time doing that as well. I want to go back to my slideshow and give you some more resources, as well as talk about some of the other things about Photoshop tools and some options out there that can help you learn these Photoshop tools more in depth. And again, I will be doing more webinars on these and spending specific time on certain tools. Adobe has a great web page explaining the tools just for informational purpose. It doesn't show you how to use them, but it explains what they do. I'm going to jump to that web page really quickly to show this to you. And I will also include a link to this page in the recording email. What I like about this page from Adobe is it shows you each of the tools, kind of divides them up into sections, similar to what I did. I think they use a few more sections than what I did. But then down below, they go into more specifics. You can expand this, and it tells you about each tool. It shows you what it looks like, and it tells you what that tool does. So this is a great resource. You just get the information about tools. Another one that I like, and again, I'll include this link in the recording email, is a page on SitePoint. Even though this tutorial is dated, it's 07, it's a popular tutorial. It includes great information about getting started with Photoshop, but they do a good job of explaining the tools somewhere down here and what the tools are used for. It doesn't go in depth a whole lot. But again, it gives a brief explanation about each. So it's a good resource to just get information about the tools. Again, you can always just Google Photoshop tools or how to use Photoshop tools online and find more resources. I also have some free Photoshop videos. It's not specifically on tools, but of course I use tools in these free videos that I offer. You can sign up for those at this link, onwardstudios.com/free Photoshop videos. Again, I will include that link in the email that goes out. And then finally, there's my free Photoshop. That's what that page will look like when you go to that. You just simply sign up and you'll get access to those Photoshop videos. I also want to let you know about an online course I did a couple of years ago on how to use Photoshop. And I'm putting together a new course in Photoshop. So I really discounted this course. I think it's like $27. And let me just show you briefly what that course is about. onwardstudios.com/Photoshop online training. It will tell you about the training, give you specifics. All my videos are just 3 to 5 minutes long, so it's very short videos. And I think I have like 25 videos, if not more, on how to do different techniques in Photoshop. I'm also available to to answer your questions. So you can email me for any student in this course, and I will respond hopefully within 24 hours is my goal. On the weekends, it might be a little bit longer, but I'll get back to you ASAP. Some of the things you'll learn in that online course is how to crop and rotate images, how to change image size and resolution and still get good image quality, how to use adjustment layers and why you would use adjustment layers, color correction techniques, converting to black and white, creating a duotone, so creating it to two colors, adding shapes, managing layers, adding text, adding some 3D effects, repairing old photos. So lots of content within this course. Some bonuses that I've added. I actually show you how to use the top 5 Photoshop tools. And I also do a demonstration of the 3 alternative software packages to Photoshop, just out of interest. And I think at least one, if not some of those, if not 2 of those are free options. I show you how to place images inside text, creating your own backgrounds, how to use Adobe Bridge, if you're familiar with that or want to get to know that. So it's just a couple of bonus options that I add to this course. And again, that's $27. Let me show you what that course looks like. Starts with an overview and some just techniques to get the most out of the course. Then it's actually divided into 3 main sections. This first section covers just an introduction to Photoshop, opening and closing, cropping and rotating images, etc. And these are the different short videos that you can glance or view, along some bonus material at the end. So each section is very similar to this, where you have the content, and then at the bottom, you'll have some bonus material that you can also preview and use. Okay, so welcome to that again. That's at onwardstudios.com/Photoshop-online-training to sign up for that. Let me jump back to my slides really quick. And that's, again, that's only $27 at this point. When the next course come out, which will probably be several months still out, if not the beginning of next year. It takes a lot of time to put these courses together. So I'm doing videos as well as some not necessarily worksheets, but checklists and PDFs, maybe short guides and those kinds of things. So the next course will be out. Could be a ways out yet till that actually comes out. And that's going to be a much higher price. I guess it's probably in the closer to $200. All right, so that kind of wraps up today's webinar. We'll continue with the Photoshop tool discussion next time around. Today we did an overview of the Photoshop tools, at least the first half of the toolbar, if you will, which is probably the majority of it. The second half will probably go faster. So again, if you have more questions about what we covered today, I can address those next time around. I also gave you some more resources to continue your learning of the Photoshop tools. Oh, just FYI, I do have a YouTube video. Onward, just maybe do a search for Onward Studios on YouTube. So that channel there has more videos and tutorials on using Photoshop, but also does include my WordPress videos as well. And I do have a blog. If you go to onwardstudios.com/blog, and at the bottom of the page, to bring up the Photoshop, there's a category drop-down option, select Photoshop, and then you'll see the Photoshop blogs. And I will admit it's been a little while since I put articles out there, but some of those are evergreen content, which means it's still relevant several years later. All right, ways to contact me. My email is Karma, spelled with a C, karma@onwardstudios.com, or just go to my website. You can contact me through my website. I do have a Twitter account, which is Onward Studios without the A in Onward. It's also true for Facebook, facebook.com/Onward Studios without the A in Onward. And of course, my YouTube channel as well. All right, that wraps up what we're covering today. I will continue the Photoshop tool discussion next time around. I certainly appreciate your patience in all of this. You saw a question come in. Yeah, we're going to cover the gradient tool next time around. There is the gradient tool is a little tricky to use, especially if you're starting out. So I'll cover at least some of the necessary details on how to use the gradient tool next time around. All right, thanks everyone. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate you taking the time to join us. And for those that are only Photoshop, we'll see you on the third week in August. Have a great weekend.